My boy Bon is only back for 2 chapters, and he's already jobbing to a pig. Hawk's brother, no less. I mean, to be fair, it makes sense why Wild is as strong as he is. It does, because if we factor in the fact that Wild has been there way before Bon and Meliodas, and we know for a fact Wild hasn't been in the series since the very beginning, like Chapter 1, aka Chapter 1, or even before Chapter 1 when we got the side stories with Escanor and stuff. It's very apparent that Wild has been there in Purgatory for thousands upon thousands of years, and for all we know, even millions of years. So, him being ridiculously strong, it makes sense. It doesn't break what, Purgatory does to people, or what we've seen from Bon, how he's adapted and gotten a lot stronger. And so if we can throw that logic to others, it makes sense why someone like Hawk's brother, Wild, would be incredibly strong. But even then, though, just like, come on, man, come on. Like, give my boy Bon some time to shine. Like, yeah, he just got back in the story, and you have his fingers get ripped off by Wild. Like, really? But okay. I'll just sit around, or I'll set aside that sadness for now. Let's talk about Wild for a second. So, I don't know how many of you noticed this, but Wild's name is a pun, okay? Let me explain. Hawk's name is Hawk, and the new pig is Wild. Hog Wild. It's a freaking pun. It's a pun. Really, Nakaba? Really? Like, are you serious? I mean, you're not really subtle with that one, but okay, I see you. I see what you're doing there. Okay, jokes aside, though, Hawk now makes a lot more sense now because of this chapter. It's been established now, thanks to this, that Hawk is from Purgatory. Now, we knew he was a gateway for the Demon King to spy on the 7 deadly sins, or aka Meliodas, but now we get confirmation that Hawk, or his species, originates from Purgatory, which would explain why Hawk was able to survive at the beginning of the series against Hindi, but also why Mama Hawk was able to eat a Purgatory flame like it was nothing and just carry on. It makes a lot of sense now. So, yeah, it makes me wonder how strong Mama Hawk is. Because, think about it like this. Even though we haven't seen Mama Hawk actually straight up fight, she tanked the 10 Commandments Purgatory flame like it was nothing. And judging by what Wild is like and what he's gone through, he may be stronger than Mama Hawk because, I mean, he's been in there probably for millions of years. But we also got to factor in that Mama Hawk is gigantic. She's massive. And so if we factor that in, how old is she? I mean, if this brother to Hawk is still around his same size, then that establishes the fact that he's nowhere near Mama Hawk in terms of strength, or at least age. So, what? So, I'm very curious on how strong she is now just because of Wild. Now, like I said, the reason why I think Mama Hawk might be stronger is because she's a lot taller and bigger, which would mean that she has lived a lot longer and probably was in Purgatory for a lot longer of a time than Wild has been. But I could be wrong there. But even then, though, big point is that now we understand why Hawk is so durable and why he always said he's incredibly strong. Most likely he knows he was from Purgatory, or he remembers that he is from a very strong species or something. That is a possibility. And that's most likely why he says the stuff he does throughout the series of Taizai. But here's the big thing, though. We gotta wonder now. Does this potentially mean that Hawk could actually get a power-up, and that he is going to get as strong as Wild apparently is? Because for all this constant, like lines from Hawk saying he's very strong, everybody's peasants before him or whatever, or servants, it does show that he most likely is truthfully thinking he's strong, and that he probably could be that strong if he trained or something. And yeah. Here's another thing, too, to also think about all of this. Hawk, when he eats creatures, he takes their traits and he absorbs them, and he gets them. This also explains that trait because of Purgatory. See, in Purgatory, you have it to where there's 2 different species. You have these shadowy species that don't really have a substance and they turn to ash when they die. Then you have these other species that have adapted to the environment. They're native species. And so you could say hawks, like species, they're native and they're used to purgatory. They won't get, burnt or frozen by purgatory at all, and they can live. And most likely, the reason why hawk species has been able to survive in purgatory is probably because they ate creatures that could allow them to adapt. And that's probably why Hawk is capable of stuff like he is, taking aspects or traits from demons when he consumes them. That's my assumption. We got to see that Bon is definitely a lot stronger than what he was in the past, which was already a given. I mean, this is a shonen. We knew he was getting a power-up because of this arc. But it's very apparent now that he's strong, very strong, which I will get into. But for Wild to take out Bon like that, like rip his fingers off, and then, Bon wasn't really able to keep up with Wild's, speed, it shows how strong Wild is, which makes him very scary. And before Wild solos the Demon King, just saying, and before. Anyways, let's get into Bon, because I think many want me to talk about that. So Bon demonstrates a new ability called Crazy Hunt. It's a new ability. Now, I personally went out of my way to check up on Bon's abilities just to make sure that Crazy Hunt wasn't used before, and it definitely was not. At the very least, from what I can see from the wiki when I looked back into it, Crazy Hunt wasn't attached at all to the known abilities of Bon. So what we saw in this chapter, with all the different, grasshopper locust things falling to the ground and stuff like nothing, it's a new ability. Now, from my assumption of what I think is going on there, I could be wrong because we haven't really got the details of Crazy Hunt. It wasn't explained to us in this chapter. But what I think is going on is it's an extension to Banishing Kill. It's the ability to where Bon is able to snatch things from people or dislocate parts of their body. He did this in the past to Hendrickson in the beginning of Taizai. And I'm going to assume that's kind of what he did. It's an extension to Bon being able to rip certain body parts off of someone and stuff like that. For instance, we saw him literally ripping chunks and stuff out of people. He was grabbing them and you saw parts of them flying off, and then it looked like he was also just, taking more than he normally could. So I'm assuming that is definitely devastating. It's definitely a strong ability because it has a massive AoE, and we got to see it had a very long range. The man was able to wipe out one of those dog-type, creatures in Purgatory like it was nothing from an extreme distance. He didn't even have to chase after it. So that shows that Bon's ability with his Crazy Hunt is insane. It's incredibly OP. But also, let's talk about how he has evolved as an individual. I saw a couple of people saying that I was probably wrong, saying that, Bon's body evolving to the point where he can deal with Purgatory. I was incorrect. It seems like I actually am correct, because Bon's body is no longer being affected by the Purgatory flames or being frozen. He's moving on like it's nothing. His body literally isn't breaking down at all. Now, there's two things that you can get from this. Either A, Bon's body has adapted to the point to where just Purgatory can't affect him anymore. Or B, Bon's body has evolved to such a point to where he regens instantly. Let me explain. So, example, Bon, when he gets, let's say, wounded, let's say he gets, his body cut in half. He's just completely cut in half and all that. Because of his regen, he's healing so quickly that you can't even tell that he lost anything. He got cut in half. Soon as the blade or whatever hits him, or whatever cuts him in half, soon as it enters him, while it's already exiting his body, he's already healed in the front part. Maybe his regen has increased so much, such in a drastic way, that is why he's not feeling anything anymore. It's because his body's just continuously healing like it's nothing, and that's what's happening. Or, like I said, he's adapted to Purgatory. But here's the big thing we also need to factor in, that was brought up once again by Nakama-sensei within this chapter, is that out of everything we have seen from Bon, Purgatory is one of the harshest places to ever be. But even then, Bon's body was able to recover. It was able to heal and recover and eventually adapt to the damage that Purgatory was causing him for hundreds upon hundreds of years, which we do get confirmation that apparently Bon has been in there for over 1,000 years. So I do like that, time frame we got. But anyways, Bon, after all these years in Purgatory, even though he gets wounds and he's been suffering, his body healed. But if there's one wound that has never healed, it's the wound that Meliodas gave him a long time ago before the series first started, before Chapter 1, which puts in perspective of how strong Meliodas is. That he was able to do something that not even Purgatory was capable of doing to Bond, leaving a permanent wound, which really is scary. It really just shows the level of strength Meliodas was at when he had his full power, and he pretty much was at the level of a Ten Commandments. It's pretty freaking scary. So I do wonder, I really am curious now if what Nakaba Sensei was trying to imply is either A, that Bond now would be able to survive those type of attacks from Meliodas and not be hurt, or B, those attacks could still potentially kill him. I do feel like at the very least, Bond would be able to tank the Ten Commandments in their attacks. For instance, if Bond was to use like Hellblaze and stuff, I do believe that he would be able to survive those attacks because of just being able to deal with Purgatory and how it's fire and ice and stuff. I feel like because of how his body's adapted, most likely Purgatory Flames or Hellblaze might not even affect him anymore. It might be nothing compared to what he's been through or his body's been through. So I feel like Bond's magic might not even help against Bond at all. So that, I think, is what's going on here. But another thing, too, as well, is the fact that also Bond, with his newfound, like, durability and all that, I do wonder if he truly is capable of, like, being on par with the Ten Commandments now. Because we still don't really have a good measure to his strength. It hasn't been stated yet that he can compete with a Ten Commandment or an Archangel. We don't know that. And that is still room for debate and surprises for wherever Nakaba wants to take, this, arc. But at the very least, it's very apparent that his AoE for his, snatch ability has increased, and it's a lot more deadlier. And he has evolved to the point where his body isn't pressured by Purgatory anymore. So, that's pretty scary. Also, I do want to point out that Nakaba made it very apparent that Bond was very similar to Meliodas. Now, this is something that has popped up many times. This isn't the first time something like this has happened in the series. It's constantly been to where Bond and Meliodas have similar dialogue or similar points of view of how they want their women or love their women. We've seen this already throughout the series. And I feel like with that dialogue at the beginning showing how they're very similar, they haven't changed at all, it kind of goes back to how the original Taizai was. But also I feel like the way Nakaba Sensei is setting this up is setting up the fact that he's building up Bond to maybe be able to be on the same level as Assault Form Meliodas. Now, like I said, I don't say that is right now like he's that level. I'm just saying that's a potential possibility because of just the correlation between both characters. Now they're very similar. Which, speaking of being very similar and all that, I do want to talk about what Meliodas said and what Bond said when they said they were going to get out of Purgatory. Like, the first thing they were going to do when they got out of Purgatory, Meliodas is like, I want to grope Elizabeth as soon as I get out. And Bond's like, I want to, give Elaine, like, a big show or whatever. It sounded very wrong. I forget the exact words he said, but I'm like, of course, these two would say something like that. I mean, we already know Elaine and Bond were probably getting it on when, he was laying in bed with her. But, I mean, just what Meliodas said, I'm just like, I guess it makes sense. I mean, he loves Elizabeth, Elizabeth loves him, they're destined lovers, have known each other for a very long time. So, I mean, him wanting to do something like that, I guess it's natural for their relationship, even if it is creepy in some ways. So, yeah. But that's pretty much it for this chapter. That's all the details we really got, but I am fascinated about Wild, and I'm really curious on how strong he's going to be. He does know where the Demon King is, so we're going to have progression there on that front, to where we're going to get introduced to the Demon King very soon. Now, one last thing to talk about before I end this video, though, is the side story that was at the end. It's very quick, so I'm not going to it's not going to take a lot of time to discuss, but, we got to see Fraudrin and Dreyfus in this chapter together in what appears to be like some form of dream sequence. And what it looks like to me is that maybe remnants of Fraudrin is still inside of Dreyfus. Now, it's not, I guess confirmed, but you could speculate that maybe Fraudrin is not dead. Like, maybe his body's gone, but his soul lives on within Dreyfus. Because, once again, as a reminder, souls and reincarnation and all that's a big theme in the series, and so when you put that together, it is possible that maybe Fraudrin lives within Dreyfus or something. Would make sense, but like I said, that's what I got from that little side chapter. But speaking of living on and all that, there is something I quickly do want to mention or ask. What's going on with Wandel now? If Hawk is technically from Purgatory, and he was always there, or, and then eventually he left Purgatory and Wild's searching after him, What's Wandle? Meliodas' old, companion, the bird and all that. I'm very curious now because we always thought that maybe Hawk was a reincarnation of Wandle, but now knowing that Hawk is apparently from Purgatory, who's Wandle then? But I want to end this video here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And I love you guys. If you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.